In this video, we will have a look at the layout, workspaces, and preferences. These are important because they allow you to customize the look and feel of the application and set it to your own liking. So, starting with the toolbar on the left, this is where we find all the tools available to us in Photoshop. So, for example, the marquee tool can be used to make selections. The brush tool can be used to paint in different ways. Clone stamp tool can be used to retouch our images. As we change the tools, you will notice that the menu or the options bar on the top also changes. And this displays all the most important options associated with your current tool. If you look at the toolbar, you will notice that some of these slots also have a small arrow on the bottom right-hand corner. So this is to say that this slot houses more than one tool. The tools also have shortcuts. So for example, if I press M, I select the marquee tool. If I press L, I select the lasso tool. If I press B, I select the brush tool. Or if I press S, I select the clone stamp tool. Because some slots have more than one tool inside of them, these tools also share the shortcuts. So to cycle through all the tools within this slot, by default, you would press Shift L, for example, for the lasso tool. You can choose to display the tools in a single column like this, or in two columns like this. So in the middle, we have the main document window. It shows us our canvas or our photographs. We can display this window using several different modes. If you click and hold onto this icon at the bottom of the toolbar, so you can choose between the standard screen mode, full screen mode with menu bar, or the full screen mode. The shortcut to cycle between these modes is F on the keyboard. So for example, if you switch to the full screen mode, you can zoom in like this and have the whole of your screen display your image. This can be very useful when you are retouching images. Whilst you are inside of the full screen mode, if you hover over the edges of the screen, you will get the toolbar, and then on the right you get the panels. If you have more than one document open, you can cycle through them by pressing Ctrl-Tab key on the keyboard, like this. You can also view documents side by side. So these are two different versions of a same design, but they are different files. So if I go to Window, Arrange, I can say Tile all vertically like this. And then, for example, I can maybe in this file, I can go to the curves adjustment layer and I can try to color match or match the color or the brightness of the backdrop, because I think the one on the left is a little bit darker than the one on the right. Like this. And then to go back to the original view, you would go to Window, Arrange, and then consolidate all to tabs like this. Another thing you can do, if I close this one, is you can have two windows for the same file, which can sometimes be useful. So if you go to Window, Arrange, and then new window for this file. And then again, I go to Window, Arrange, Tile all vertically. So maybe I can zoom in into a small area of this file in one pane. And then if I make some adjustments like this, like that, I can see the close-up of that adjustment in one panel, and then I can see what this looks like on the canvas as a whole. They are still relating to the same file. So I can close one of them. Another thing you can do is if you go to the window and then application frame, if you untick this, this can show you other apps in the background. So for example, if you are following this course, you could open this video inside of your internet browser and then follow along without having to switch between two different applications. On the right-hand side, we have various panels. For example, the Layers panel shows me all the layers inside of my file. So if I select a text layer like this, the Properties panel shows me all the properties of this text. So for example, it shows me which font I'm using, the size of the font, the color, etc. If I choose a curves adjustment layer, then the Properties panel is going to show me the curves adjustment, etc. We also said that if, for example, I use a type tool, the options panel will show me the most important options for this tool, but we also have a panel that relates to the text. So if you compare the two, you can see that actually this is a short version of this panel and this panel combined. So the panels give me even more options for the type, for example. We will learn these as we go along because there are quite a few of them and you can bring them in and out as you need them. So the application layout as a whole is called the workspace. If you click onto this drop down here, so we can see that we are now using the Essentials workspace, and you have different ones like motion, painting, photography, etc. I think the Essentials is a good one to start with. So let me show you how I would customize this workspace to suit my way of working. So I would start with the toolbar. If you click and hold onto these three dots and then select Edit Toolbar, there are some tools here that I very rarely use. So for example, I would remove the Artboard tool, also these two, and then I would scroll down. Slice tool, again, this is for web designers, so I rarely use this. Maybe this 3D material drop tool I don't need. And I can keep the rest. So I will say done. And then, for example, going through these panels, for example, I don't really use the gradients panel. I can just drag it out and I can close it. The same with patterns. I can close it by clicking onto this burger menu and then say close, like this. Libraries, I can close, like this. And then some of these panels, for example, the history panel, I can click, hold, and drag it into this location. I can close this one. And then I will also close these because I bring them up when I need them, like this. And then once everything is set, I can go to the window, workspace, and then create a new workspace and call this my workspace. And then say that I want to save the menus, the toolbar as well. And sometimes you can also change the keyboard shortcuts. So maybe you would want to tick this on so that this workspace kind of remembers all the changes that you've made. Then you can click Save. And then if you look at this drop down, so you can see that you have your own workspace. So you can change between them. Now, the thing is that the Essentials, because we started with the Essentials workspace, you don't have to save it, but Photoshop will remember all the changes. What you can do is, for example, if you go to the window workspace, you can say Reset Essentials, like this. So this will go to that default layout. And now Essential is different to my workspace that I have created. And lastly, let's look at the preferences, because there are some very important behaviors you can control from here. For example, I'm using Apple's Magic Mouse, which has a finger pad on top. So if I do something like this accidentally, the application can zoom in and out, and many times this has happened to me. So I had to go into Preferences and go to Photoshop, Preferences, Tools, and then I needed to untick this option which says Zoom with Scroll Wheel. So now it doesn't do this anymore. Another thing, if I go to, for example, the polygonal lasso tool, I click here, and then if I make a kind of a sudden movement up like this, I can lose sight of the canvas. So to fix this, again, I can press Command K to go into Preferences and then Tools, and then say that I want to turn off the overscroll. Another thing you can change, which I like to change, is this option that says use Shift key for tool switch. Remember when we were talking about the tool shortcuts, we said that one slot can be a home to many different tools, and then you would press Shift, for example, Shift L to cycle through all the different lassos. If you turn this off, then you don't have to press the Shift key anymore. So you can just press L, and then you cycle through all the different tools inside of this slot, which I think is a faster way to work. If you go back to the preferences, you can, for example, if you go into the interface, you can change the color theme. So you can make the application brighter or darker, like this. Under file handling, I think this is an important one. By default, Photoshop is set to save all new files to the Creative Cloud. So I like to change this to on your computer so that when you want to save a file, it will ask you where on your disk you want to save the file rather than on the cloud. And lastly, another part of the preferences are the performance and scratch disks. For example, if you see that your Photoshop is slowing down, then what you could try is to change the amount of available RAM from the default 70% to something higher, maybe like 80% or 85%, and see if this helps. If you want to improve the performance of Photoshop, you could also try to reduce the number of history states, so maybe from 30 to 20. You could also try to reduce the cache levels maybe to 3. Under Tools, you could try to untick Animated Zoom, because this also in theory takes up a little bit of the processing power. And you could try to use an external drive as a scratch disk, especially if you attach a solid state external drive that may have faster write and read speeds than your hard drive where the operating system resides. This could in theory speed up your Photoshop. If this doesn't work, another thing you could try is to maybe upgrade the physical RAM. So maybe instead of having 16 gigabytes of RAM, maybe you can try adding another 16, so you have 32 gigabytes. So you can go through the rest of these. Most of them are self-explanatory and easy to understand, and basically they just allow you to fine-tune the way that the Photoshop works.